Hello once again, friends and enemies, and welcome back to Weird Deck Techs. My name is Toxy, back once again. Let's get into it. Today's archetype is a Yu-Gi-Oh! GX era archetype used by Adrian Gecko.
These two Cloudian sheep clouds.
The Cloudian archetype primarily consists of water monsters that, for the most part, don't really have much going for them. They utilize a resource called fog counters, and they kind of rely on being in an attack position, being destroyed if they're put into defense mode. Overall, Cloudians are known for being pretty weak and generically kind of bad. So I was thinking, let's go ahead and take a look at the deck today, the archetype as a whole, and see if we can figure out how to make it better. Let's check it out. So here we have my Cloudian deck build, pure as I could make it without being the worst Cloudian deck that I could make. As always, I'll go by card, we'll take a look at gameplay, and then we'll talk about the deck and improving it. Starting our deck off, we've got 2 copies of our normal level 1 Cloudian Smoke Ball. That's all you gotta know. 2 copies of Cloudian Eye of the Typhoon. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is in face-up defense position, destroy it. When this card declares an attack, change the battle positions of all face-up monsters except for Cloudian monsters. Eye of the Typhoon kind of acts like the boss monster of the deck. It changes the positions of all the monsters on the field except for your Cloudians, meaning that if your Cloudians are all in attack mode, they won't get destroyed by their own effects. 2 copies of Cloudian Nimbus Man. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is in face-up defense position, destroy it. You contribute any number of water monsters for the tribute summon of this card. When this card is tribute summoned, place 1 fog counter on it for each water monster you tributed. This card gains 500 attack for each fog counter on the field. I'm not the biggest fan of cards gaining attack. I think it's kind of like a useless gimmick at this point in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. 3 copies of Altis. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is in face-up defense position, destroy it. I think I'm gonna stop tacking that part onto the effect. I'll just leave it there. You get it. When they're in defense position, they're destroyed. When you normal summon this card, place 1 fog counter on it for each Cloudian monster on the field. You can remove 3 fog counters from anywhere on the field to discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. 3 copies just because I like this card. 3 copies of Storm Dragon. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card can only be special summoned by removing from play 1 Cloudian monster from your graveyard. Once per turn, you can place 1 fog counter on 1 monster on the field. So it just gets your fog counters a little bit up there, but unfortunately, fog counters for these Cloudians don't do a whole crazy amount, but they do enough, I think. 2 copies of Zero Stratus. When you normal summon this card, place 1 fog counter on it for each Cloudian monster on the field. You can remove 2 fog counters from this card to destroy 1 monster on the field. 2 copies of Turbulence. When you normal summon this card, place 1 fog counter on it for each Cloudian monster on the field. You can remove 1 fog counter from this card to special summon 1 Cloudian Smoke Ball from your deck or from either player's graveyard. Turbulence is really just there to build up your field. 2 copies of Acid Cloud. When you normal summon this card, place 1 fog counter on it for each Cloudian on the field. You can remove 2 fog counters from this card to destroy 1 spell or trap card. I like spell and trap removal. I like it. 2 copies of Ghost Fog. This card does not have the defense position effect like the other cards. All battle damage to either player from a battle involving this monster becomes 0. If this card is destroyed by battle, distribute new fog counters equal to the level of the monster that destroyed it among face-up monsters. That's a special tool that'll help us out later. Kind of, not really. And last for monsters, 3 copies of Sheep Cloud. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon 2 Cloudian tokens, Fairy type, Water, level 1, attack 0, defense 0, in defense position. These tokens cannot be tributed for a tribute summon unless it is for a Cloudian monster. So those are the monsters of the deck. So far, not looking too great, but what can our spells and traps do? Starting with spells, we've got 2 copies of Cloudian Squall, a continuous type spell. During each of your standby phases, place 1 fog counter on every face-up monster. More fog counter creation. 3 copies of Summon Cloud, a continuous spell. Once per turn during your main phase, if you don't control any monsters, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Cloudian monster from your hand or from either player's graveyard. If you special summon a monster from the graveyard with this effect, destroy this card. Personally, I think Summon Cloud can be handy, but only if you're playing this on a first turn or a turn after all of your monsters have been destroyed. 2 copies of Cloudian Aerosol. Discard one Cloudian monster, then target one face-up monster on the field, place fog counters on that target equal to its level. You can banish this card and one Cloudian monster from your graveyard, special summon one Cloudian monster from your deck. You can only use one Cloudian aerosol effect per turn and only once that turn. 2 copies of Lucky Cloud, a normal spell. During the end phase, if you summon 2 or more Cloudian monsters with the same name this turn, draw 2 cards. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. 2 copies of a quick play spell, Fog Control. Tribute 1 face-up Cloudian monster you control, place 3 fog counters on 1 face-up monster. Lose a Cloudian to place fog counters. It's not great, but it does something. And finally for the deck, we have our traps. We have 1 copy of Natural Disaster, a continuous type spell. Inflict 500 damage to your opponent each time a card they control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard by the effect of a Cloudian monster. It's not going to happen often, but if you can get it to happen enough, Natural Disaster can be fine. 3 copies of Raging Cloudian. Activate only when a Cloudian monster you control is destroyed by its own effect. It's sent to the graveyard. Special summon 1 of these monsters from your graveyard in attack position and place 1 fog counter on it. It cannot be changed to defense position by a card effect. While Raging Cloudian wouldn't come up that often as like a gameplay card, I put 3 copies in it because I feel like it is more plausible that your cards are going to get destroyed by their own effect rather than by many other things aside from, cards targeting and destroying them. Lastly for the deck, 2 copies of Rainstorm. Select 1 Cloudian monster you control, reduce that monster's attack by 1,000 or 2,000 points, and apply the appropriate effect. 1,000 points, destroy 1 spell or trap card on your opponent controls. 2,000 points, destroy 2 cards your opponent controls. Let's take a quick look at how the deck plays, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the deck itself. Alright, so here we have our first hand, and it's already not looking too great for us. We can start off by activating our Cloudian Squall, which will at least maybe get us some fog counters onto our, monsters, or any monster on the field, because some Cloudians don't care. Honestly, the best bet for a first turn with this deck, if you're going first, is to either set out your Turbulence, just to have a card out there that can't be destroyed by battle, or set out your Sheep Cloud, and then when your Sheep Cloud gets destroyed, hopefully by battle, you'll have 2 Cloudian tokens out on the field that you can use to tribute summon for your Nimbus Man. Unfortunately, setting our Sheep Cloud or playing our Turbulence are the only things we can really do because Acid Cloud won't do much for us now. We can only hope to play it on our second turn, unless we're going second, in which case, if we can somehow get this out with another Cloudian out on the field, that would require us to draw, the Summon Cloud. And taking a draw here, that's not the card we're going to get. Overall, with the hand that we were given, this is a loss, ultimately. These cards play a little bit too slow for my taste. Now, obviously, this deck is not that impressive. There's not a whole bunch that this deck can do. So what can we do to fix the archetype and fix the deck? I mean, you can add in some cards that help with water monsters, like Pyraith, the Ghost Pirate, might be able to help you, but I feel like probably not. Realistically, ideally, you wouldn't play this deck at all. Now, to make the deck better, I think you'd have to have a little more special summon in this deck. Maybe you could make a Cloudian that is an Omni-Negate. You could give the Cloudians the Sprite treatment, I think, and just give them some things that they can do to, combo off of each other to actually do something. So much of the Cloudians draw relies on getting fog counters by already having Cloudians on your field. The problem with that being that there isn't really a way to get a whole bunch of Cloudians out at once. You're playing maybe 1, 2, at most 3 a turn. It just feels kind of like a weak archetype, and the only way to really make this archetype better, in my opinion, would be to overhaul it completely and fill it with retrains. Kind of like Speedroid with Vehicroid. Same goes for building this deck. You're probably better off just not building this deck at all, but if you want to build this deck just to have a little bit of fun, have a little casual deck that's not that good, of course, just add in your regular little, negates, your little hand traps. You can put in Pyraith, like I said before, and he can come out from your graveyard when your monsters get destroyed. And I know that there are certain cards, certain newer cards that rely on water types specifically that can probably help you out with this deck. That being said, as much nostalgia as I have for this archetype, it's not really a good archetype.
I don't really like it, but, you know, to each their own.
How do you feel about the Cloudian archetype? Do you just think that it needs a little bit more TLC, or is it dead in the water? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're having a wonderful time. And until next time, drink your water.